Welcome to the Rankings Podcast, where we feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and elite personal injury attorneys and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Chris Stryer here, president and founder of Rankings.io, where we help elite personal injury attorneys dominate first page rankings. You're listening to the Rankings Podcast, where I feature innovative business owners and, of course, elite personal injury attorneys. Speaking of elite personal injury attorneys, I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Eric Chaffin. He is the founder and managing partner of Chaffin Luhana, a plaintiffs-only law firm with a national practice focused on representing injured victims on complex cases. He is a former federal prosecutor, a member of the multi-million-dollar Advocates Forum, and has been recognized by super lawyers every year since 2010. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show and talk about brand building. So you built this amazing firm, a very recognizable brand. Most attorneys I talk to, they just focus on the bottom of the funnel. They just focus on direct marketing, and they're missing the big picture when it comes to brand equity. What are your thoughts on investing in your brand?
Yeah, I think for us, we really were very deliberate in how we formed our firm, and certainly our core value of doing good by doing right. And so that by nature, just, the motto or the principle of doing good by doing right is, it really creates a brand in and of itself. And certainly a good reminder for us daily in terms of how we work with our clients and really what we're about as a firm. And so it comes pretty naturally. Certainly at different times, we've been really focused on the direct marketing, but certainly from brand perspective, it's something that's always in the back of our minds, but certainly on the forefront now in terms of what we're doing as a firm.
So Eric, it's funny you say this, and you're going to make my job as an interviewer difficult here, because one of the things I wrote down was, I find that your brand building comes natural from your overarching value, doing good by doing right. So, let's talk about some of those initiatives. We won't call them brand strategies. Let's talk about some of those initiatives that do bring brand equity. What do some of those look like?
Yeah, I think the big thing for us is, and it's for any firm, I think you have to really figure out what's genuine and authentic for you, and can work really well. And so for us, we tend to do community events. It's something our team really rallies behind. We'll do 3 or 4 of those a year. I love sports, and so this past fall we did one around the New York City Marathon with the Reeve Foundation, for example. Currently, in the face of the pandemic, we saw a need to really help people and feed people. And so we pretty quickly organized to give away 10,000 sandwiches within 6 days, actually, when we had the concept, we did it. And so we have a phenomenal team that can execute very efficiently, both on the foundation level, because we have a foundation, but then through the firm as well. And so really proud of that. And from that just comes really natural marketing, and certainly our commercials, everything just really naturally flow from some of that. And because it's authentically who we are.
Do you find not only from the marketing standpoint that it brings like your team together, and there's a cultural aspect of community from it?
Yeah, you have to be deliberate still. I mean, there's a natural camaraderie that comes from that. But of course, there has to be things to sustain everyone in between those points, because, those are 3 or 4 times a year that we do these bigger events. But yeah, it is natural. It's something that starts with us in terms of recruiting. We do a lot of recruiting on LinkedIn, for example, and different places. And part of that is to help the millennial generation in particular understand what our brand is. I find a lot of people will say, like, my age, I'm pushing 50 now, unfortunately. I wish I was younger. But a lot of people my age will say, like, gosh, I hate working with millennials. I don't understand them. They want to just, be happy and have lots of friends and not really work so hard. And I find that's not true. What I find is they're not as focused on money, but if you can give them a cause to work for, they can get behind that cause very strongly. And so in some way, I actually think they've got it right. My father's generation was, work, put your head down and work, not focused on various other things in life. The millennials, I think, have a lot of general focus, but then also if you can give them a cause, they will rally behind it and work tremendously hard. It's not so much about the compensation. It is. I mean, you want people that are hungry, but at the same time, like, they want that cause. And so for us, it really works well to pull the team together because we do have those causes throughout the year.
Yeah, and one of the things, so I work with ton of millennials, of course,
Sure.
in digital marketing. One of the things I find is just in general, that money isn't the biggest motivating factor. You give someone a raise, but if you give them more responsibilities or a purpose, then I find that it really has an impact. And it sounds like that what you're experiencing as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, the purpose is a big part of it. Obviously, they want professional and personal growth. And so I think, having a firm that really works at a high level professionally in complex cases, but then also has that personal level where you're connected with the clients, and then also the public causes, that social consciousness, we find we really marry the two together. And so we're excited to offer that to our team. And certainly a big part of it is the team itself. I mean, I can't take, the credit for a lot of what we do. A lot of it's the team and being able to build what we do. And, we're unique in that we have project managers at our firm, people who get in and work on projects like this, much like other businesses, for example, unlike, a lot of traditional law firms. And so because of that, I think we're more innovative in terms of how we approach things, and it keeps a fresh approach. And so overall, it's just, it's a really good part of the team.
That's a really interesting point. So a lot of times you have like for a business, you have like an account manager that's like the client facing, and then you have a project manager for the legal field. It seems like it's kind of a blended role. So you found that just the approach was to separate it was really effective. I think that's very interesting.
It is. Yeah. I mean, we certainly have traditional paralegals. We have different things, but, we have a full-time community outreach coordinator in our Pittsburgh office because we do so many different community projects there. She really does project work. And then we have 2 other project managers that work on national projects and regional projects with us. And sometimes they're business operation projects, sometimes they're client-facing projects, other times they're community-facing projects. And so, we work in Asana, we work on Slack. I mean, there's different things that we do that are more like different, marketing operation businesses, and we find it really effective. I mean, it's been really helpful for us.
Well, that's great. So these brand strategies that you do, and this community building, and everything that you're investing in for your marketing, and no matter if it's a financial, well, obviously giving away 10,000 sandwiches was not a free investment, obviously.
Sure.
It comes down to a lot of people, they focus on the word attribution. And it's definitely important when it comes to focusing on ROI. What are some of the metrics that you look at to measure success of a brand initiative?
It's interesting. It's, I think for us, so just to step back for a second, and, I think that, we'll do mass tort marketing, for example. And so, of course, a lot of that is direct response, because you can't really build a national brand that's sustaining because we don't have the budget of like a Target or a Walmart, for example, right? And so we can't be in every household. I think the closest model to that's maybe a Sokolov model, for example. And frankly, because there's so much negative press against attorneys, I think that can actually backfire against you if you're actually out that much. And so even on mass torts, we're very deliberate in terms of what projects we're on television about. And we are on national television, direct response on Zantac, for example, or other products that we're heavily involved in. In terms of our regional brand, I think that's really where we're talking about today. And that's more in the PI market in the Pittsburgh area. And we find a lot of people try to replicate us. They'll do something that's more, it's not as authentic in terms of what they're doing. In terms of us and what we look for is, we certainly look at impressions, for example. We look for engagement, whether that's billboard ads or TV ads or radio ads. We're trying to engage everyone in some level. And so, on 10,000 sandwiches, for example, I was going to try to pull up the statistics here. I don't have them in front of me, but, we had literally hundreds of thousands of impressions. We had, I think it was 150,000 different engagements around that project. We had people, I think there were upwards of 700 people through one of the groups we were working with, where they were engaged as people that actually participated in the event itself. We work with Oakmont Bakery on that project. So we engaged local businesses. And when we engaged local businesses, we're able to help them with their brands. But of course, that aligned us with their brand and built some brand credibility and trust. And so just by nature, I think working with those small businesses, a lot of plaintiffs firms to say, oh, I don't want to work with local businesses. That's who I sue. And that's not our philosophy at all. Our philosophy is let's engage in the community, help each other, help the public. And then I think the most important thing from our perspective on that particular project, for example, is we actually had people showing up at the event to pick up sandwiches, not just for their families, but to actually take them back to senior centers, take them back to porches to drop off and leave on families' homes. And so to us, that's the ultimate engagement, is we actually took members of the public who aren't a business and actually had them doing good for other people in their community. And that was all through something we started. And so from our perspective, that's really how we measure it. We think that we build a stronger connection with the communities by doing that. And it's really authentic to who we are, and we're doing good in the process. And so that's really how we look at it.
Yeah, and that's incredible. And a lot of people, when they talk about a brand, they talk about awareness, engagement, consideration. The other way that I hear it is know, like, and trust. So you're building that trust and that likability by doing goodwill. You talked about Asana and you talked about Slack. So we use Trello and Slack, so we're really close, right?
Yeah, sure.
What about your CRM, your choice of like your customer relationship management tool?
Sure.
Is there, do you use that? Is it an effective tool in your toolkit? Is it a focus?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think one is, in terms of today, in the face of the pandemic, I think it's critically important for any firm to really have a digital platform of some type. I think having it in the cloud is particularly important. Obviously, security is an issue, so you want to pick a platform that's abundantly secure. There are many platform choices out there. I think some of the leading ones, for example, TrialWorks is one we worked with for a while. We use the remote desktop platform. It's actually now going to a cloud-based system. We're actually not moving to that system. We're actually moving our office over to Litify. We're in the process of doing that now. And, there's pluses and minuses to all these things. I think the biggest thing for us is that, we're focused on data. And so from our perspective, we're looking at it, and we want it to be interfaced on Salesforce, because it's, just Salesforce is everywhere. We actually were on Tableau before Salesforce purchased or acquired Tableau. Once that happened, that actually drove our decision to change over from TrialWorks to Litify, frankly. And a lot of people were like, how did that happen? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And but that's just how sort of data oriented we were, is we were building Tableau to sit on TrialWorks, and now we're like, wait a second, Salesforce is completely integrated, very easy. And so that's where we're going. So I think that's important. And I think the one thing that I think, just as businesses, I think we all have to be tuned into is, if you're working on cases and complex cases nationally like we are, I think it's two things. I think it's one is direct to consumer, which we do a lot of. And I think we're very unique in that our firm will not only litigate the cases, we're actually, the top of the leadership in Zantac, for example. My partner Rupal's negotiated with the defense counsel, many of the initial 16 organizing orders with other counsel on the plaintiff side. But on top of litigating them, we also advertise for our cases. And so we have that business mindset as well. And certainly that client service is a big part of it. And so we think of it so direct to consumer, but then also business to business, because we have big referral sources around the country that we work with. And so in the face of the pandemic, we had some of our highest referral weeks yet. Because the litigations we're involved in. And so we really want a system that not only will work well with our end consumers, but then also work with our referral sources as well. And so having really strong reporting functions, for example, and be able to give optics to our co-counsel as to exactly where cases are and what the status are, as well as like in Zantac, for example, there's a very large census that's building for the clients themselves, and to be able to build those census data within our CRM platform is really important. And so we really look at it, from soup to nuts in terms of how our CRM is interacting. And frankly, there isn't one that really does everything that we want to do. So we do a lot of customization as well. And so it's a long-winded way of saying that we try to look at it as a big picture, but then, even as a managing partner, to understand the details of what's going on and really be able to understand from, the marketing to the actual end case disbursement is really important, I think.
There are tons of nuggets in there, Eric. I could pick your brain probably for an hour here.
Yeah.
I would say, one of the things that you mentioned is you're focused not only on the consumer, but also your peers. That they are an extremely valuable lead source. And when you're actually practicing the work and you show that expertise, they want to get maximum value for the good cases they get. So they want to work with someone like you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's true. And I think for us, I think what we do is much different than many other firms that are doing referrals is, all of our referral sources, the first thing we say to them is, hey, here's how much we're investing personally as a firm. That's, the partner's equity capital in advertising for these projects. That's how much we believe in them. And so I think that goes a long ways with our referral partners, first and foremost. The second part is we look at it and say, these are obviously referral sources, but then they have clients as well. And so we have many of them that have regional practices. They invest a lot in building their brand on a regional basis to make sure they have strong brand equity with their clients and their local areas. And so we want to look after that for them as well. We want to make sure that, if we have a client from Kansas that's coming to us through a referral source, that they get top line service. And if there's any issues and communication issues, the local firm as well as us are plugged in very quickly to understand that and be able to address it. And so we want to make our referral partners look good. And I think having a system that gives transparency across our team is critically important to that.
That's truly unique, the transparency component. Many of the attorneys I talk to, they pass off a referral, and that's the last time they hear about it until it's settling. So I find that really, really intriguing. The other thing is, a lot of times we'll see a firm and they'll get a 1-star review, and most of the time it wasn't from the service. It was like, hey, I don't handle that case. See you later.
Sure.
And that individual will leave a bad review. But if you just even have a good experience or have a partner like yourself that you can transfer a case to, then it can bring value to the local SEO.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, and I think even us, I mean, we've certainly, we have all had, you can't be in business. And, I say you can't be a good trial lawyer without losing cases. If you try cases, you're going to lose some. I learned that as a young prosecutor. But, the same way with clients, I mean, you can't have many clients and be successful without having some unhappy ones. And I think the important thing there is, certainly to engage them, as much as you can, publicly say a response or provide a response. But the ones we do see, I think most frequently for us or anybody else, is where someone thinks that you'll take on every possible case. And, our philosophy is doing good by doing right is really, hey, there are some cases that in our view are just not going to be profitable for the client. When I say profitable, I don't mean just economically, I mean emotionally as well. Sometimes the emotional toll on litigation is so significant. And so we really look at it from that perspective, have a conversation with the clients themselves as well as the referring counsel. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we do some unique device litigation, and we post some blogs and legal news on Legal Examiner, for example. And so we get calls from attorneys quite often on projects, and certainly can talk through with them, the aspects of it, what we've seen, and whether it would make sense to pursue it or not. And so then the client actually gets an educated discussion about the particular issue versus, no, we can't help you with that, and they just get turned away. And so it does lead to a more satisfied client experience on that level as well.
Yeah, that's very smart. So I've got to pivot here, Eric. Sure. I got to ask you an SEO nerd question here. So in the past, you used to have Ohio Valley PIlawyers.com. Was your decision to merge that site with Chaffin Luhana more of an SEO strategy, or was that a bigger picture brand strategy?
Yeah, so let me step back for a second. So, I started in the digital space with SEO in particular, probably back, I was at Seeger Weiss, and then I was at, Bernstein Leopard in New York. And so, my focus then, which was probably 2008 to 2010, was really SEO. And so, Rupal and I really perfected SEO as attorneys, frankly, doing keywords off of denture adhesive and zinc. And, we settled about $140 million in cases in the first, year and a half, 2 years of the firm, which was all pretty much cases driven by SEO combined with some organic, like Good Morning America, different press we did around, because we were litigating the cases. Again, like using that with SEO is a really powerful strategy. And so that's where we came from. And so SEO has always been part of our strategy in some level. Of course, as things have progressed, it becomes more diluted on some levels because of localization, as well as how Google's wanting you to pay for your ads. And so I think it's really part of an overall strategy online. And so I think there's businesses like yours where I think it has to be part of that strategy. And certainly if you can marry it up with those other pieces, it's a really powerful strategy both on a regional and national basis. I think the thing for us is, we started in 2010 as really a mass tort firm. We decided in 2013 to start the Pittsburgh and West Virginia offices. We first went into West Virginia, then we went into Pittsburgh. And so 13, it was really West Virginia, 15 more concentrated on Pittsburgh. we started with Ohio Valley PI lawyers because that's really the tri-state area there in the Pittsburgh area. And, we had that, and then we had the Chaffin site, which was really primarily out of New York. And we made a mistake, frankly, from the beginning because we basically separated our brand. And so it became apparent to us in 15, 16 that we really needed to bring our brand back together. And that's really started focusing on what does the brand stand for? How can we use it not just on a regional basis, but a national basis as well? And really bring everything together. It brings our offices together better to be under one umbrella, just everything. And so it's a combination of that and an SEO strategy. We've really had the consolidated sites now. I guess it's been about a year and a half, something like that. I think it's interesting. I think we rank really well for some of our national mass tort keywords. We're at different places. We're not where we were with Ohio Valley PI lawyers, for example, in the Pittsburgh office. And I have some understanding of why that is and strategies we're going to employ to fix that, but not something I'll talk about public, frankly.
Right. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just for me, I'm a big advocate of one site. It's, one brand. You essentially, when you have multiple sites, it's multiple brands. You got to build up all that equity. So I think definitely the right decision. But I get it. Back in several years ago, around that 2008 period, having the keyword in the domain would help you. So I understand that strategy and how the domain really helped you dominate.
Sure.
Let's talk about you being the firm's managing partner. You have limited time. And you really need to focus these activities on the high value activities that bring the most value to the firm. What are your HVAs or your high value activities?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's certainly changed over time. As I mentioned before, when we first started, I did some SEO work, certainly understanding of it. I think it's important as a managing partner to have an understanding of different parts of the business, and even understand the details of it. I think is really important. With that said, probably 90% of my time until really the last year and a half to 2 years was really litigating cases. I was trial counsel on cases. I was national litigation counsel on big projects. And, we've really reached a point where Rupal, who's my law partner on Mass Torts, is really managing that practice and out in front, for example, on Zantac. And then Pat Booth, who's our partner in the Pittsburgh office, is really out in front of a lot of our personal injury cases. And so that's freed me up to work a lot more, on the business rather than in the business. And I think that's a really difficult thing to do as a trial lawyer and someone who used to be a federal prosecutor. Is I have that hunger to be in there and litigating and trying cases. And but I think the important thing is you have to step back and say, what is the highest and best use of time, particularly as we're on a growth strategy in the next 3 to 5 years. And I think for us, I think coming to the realization that myself accepting that's, working on the business is a really important aspect of it has been a mind shift for me. And so I spend more time on the business itself. The other part of it is, we got involved with Crisp and Michael Mogul in particular. And I know those guys. And Michael's a great guy. And, I think he's got wisdom beyond his years in terms of some of his insights as well as his business strategies. And so we've been really active in a masterminds group with them, as well as, just met some really brilliant, owners of law firms across the country. And just seeing everyone doing different things, but then also doing some self-assessments. And, we did Colby, for example, as our firm. And, there's different parts of Colby. And the one thing that for myself that I came to realize is, there's people that are fact finders, there are people that are follow through, they're very rule oriented in terms of following rules. And then there are people that are really creative mind people as well. And many entrepreneurs tend to be creative mindset. And I tend to be a fact finder, but then also that longer green line and more a little more creative, and that's sort of my natural spot. And so, for me, that's where I spend a lot more time in the business to give myself that creative freedom. Looking at people like Bill Gates, for example, or others who have that mindset of stepping away from the business, trying to understand society. What are some of the approaches? What's the firm about? What are we trying to achieve? Our words right now for this year, positive impact. That's something across our team that we're focused on. And so just really trying to look at projects and say, how can we have a positive impact? And, 10,000 sandwiches, for example, is something I came up with, spur of the moment on I think it was a Tuesday morning on the 17th. And then literally, but we were executing it by the 23rd. And so just, working on projects like that, not just outwardly on the community, in the community, but then also within the firm in terms of systems, within platforms, with referral sources. Just that's really where I'm spending the time right now. And I think as a managing partner, I think that's really important. And it's something that probably in the first 9 years or so of our firm, I wasn't as focused as much on, but certainly getting to where we want to go, and certainly the next 5 years, 10 years, I think that's critically important.
Yeah, there are tons of good things here. So you talked about Michael's, I think it's the Chris Beck's, the mastermind. So you're with like-minded people that helps you elevate and continue to look at new ideas. You're talking about, not litigating. So when you're litigating and you've got your head down and you can't really have your head up looking at all opportunities to bring the most value to the firm, and just those activities, those processized activities and working on the business helps you scale, helps you continuously improve. And that's what it's all about. So I really applaud that. And I think that is incredibly important. So let me ask you one final question here, Eric. Do you have any advice for your fellow lawyers trying to grow a large, successful practice?
Yeah, I think you have to figure out. I mean, there's we're seeing the pandemic, and I think there's going to be an awakening, I think, for everybody. I mean, I think the one thing, and I'll just say something personal that I think we can just sort of broaden it. But for me, being home as much as I am and being able to work from home, I have a commute that's 45 minutes to an hour and 15 each day, each way, I should say, to New York City from my home in Westchester. Or if I'm traveling to my Pittsburgh office, it's obviously longer, and I'm spending the night or a couple of nights. And so I think this period has certainly allowed me to be at home, see some of what I've missed, for example. And I think there are other people that see that as well. With that said, I have a deep passion for what I do. It's deep rooted in who I am. Partly because of what I've experienced in my life. And so I love what I do, truly. I think there are other people that maybe aren't in that position where they're doing it because they feel like they have to. And I think, if you really want to grow a firm, I think the first thing is do you really want that? And frankly, if you do, then I think you have to figure out, how best to do that. And I think that the best strategy is to not just do like what I saw my dad do, which is just work tremendously hard, just keep working, but instead figure out for yourself, not how to soothe issues in your life, but how to truly recover. And I think that's something that I didn't really understand, but I certainly come to understand since like 2015 when I started meditating. But you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. Once you do that, you can help others put theirs on. And to be a true leader, I think it really starts from within. And so, for me, that's, non-negotiables are I meditate daily, usually twice a day, 20 minutes each. I physically train. I love training to a goal. So I do Ironman races. I love that. That's something I do. It's non-negotiable. It's just part of my life. There are other things like journaling, doing gratitude. I think it's really important. So all those things help me stay mental clarity and focus and stay present in the moment when I am with my family so that I can disengage from the work itself. And so I think that's really important. If you do those things and you're still in a position of clarity where you're like, that's what I want, then I think, go after it. If it's in a position where you're doing it because you think that you need to do it to keep up with the Joneses because that's what you need to do as a firm, I think that's a mistake. And I think that's a recipe for failure, quite frankly, or success with a lot of problems with it. And I think that's what we see, unfortunately, far too many times in the trial bar. And so, I tell people all the time that, look, I'm not a life coach, but I certainly experienced a lot in my lifetime. And certainly happy to, and I've talked to many people who randomly just give me a call and say, hey, how'd you do this? Or, how did you get involved in whatever? And always happy to talk to people and support them. And surround yourself with, as you said a minute ago, Chris, is, surround yourself with those people that are going to be happy for you when you are reaching that level of success. And, my dad said to me all the time, you put your head above the crowd, people are going to try and knock it off, right? And but I always say, if you put your head above the right crowd, they're going to be happy for you and support you. And that's really what you want to build within your firm, but then within the community you're operating in. And to me, if you get that, then that's really where, at least for me, that's where true happiness is. You've got a lot of high fives and some struggles, and that's part of the journey, but a lot of high fives, and it can be really rewarding.
Eric, thank you for that. That's just incredible. And thank you for sharing that. I agree. And if you're passionate about something, it's no longer work. So then it's not clocking in at 9 to 5. It's just something that you're doing because you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
Guys, we've been talking to Eric Chaffin, founder and managing partner of Chaffin Luhana. Eric, where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, so we have our website, chaffinluhana.com. That's probably the easiest way. Feel free to reach out. I'm on Facebook. It's public. You'll see some of what I do daily in terms of some of my training and stuff. But yeah, always happy to talk with people, and feel free to reach out. My email address is just chaffin@chaffinluhana.com. Prefer not to get solicitations, of course, from vendors, but certainly if it's vendors wanting to talk just about personal habits and stuff, always happy to do that, regardless of who it is. But certainly appreciate your time, Chris.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Eric. Thanks for coming on the show.
All right, man. Be well.
Thanks for listening to the Rankings Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.